It's a Week 15 edition of NFL Power Rankings. It is presented by Energizer. Mike Am and Eric Edholm with you. A complete list of all 32 teams and analysis on all of them on NFL.com. Once again, this is becoming like a regular cadence for me, Eric. I finish up Monday Night Football. We got an overtime game. And as I'm kind of walking out to my car, I'm reading what you're writing. And not a huge pushback on most of the rankings, especially when it comes to the top 10 here, but I thought there was a line that was fascinating. This year's playoffs will look a little bit different than recent ones. Why is that?
Well, look what's happened to the Chiefs and the Ravens and sort of other standby teams. Even if you thought, Washington, for instance, was going to build off last season, it swabbed the decks completely, clean it off. It's not going to look like we've seen in recent years. And so, especially the teams at the top, Denver, New England, fighting for the top spot in the AFC. This is good. This is new and fresh and different and interesting.
Yeah, no, I like it. And we're not going to get a change at the top because I think the controversy with the number one team was a week ago when the Rams lost to Carolina. They dominate over the weekend and they get to stay with a 10-3 record, number one in the power rankings. We got Seattle right behind them. Talk about both of those teams in just a moment. The Denver Broncos continue to flex here and show they are one of the premier teams in the NFL at 3, the Patriots at 4. We got a Green Bay squad that overcame a little bit of trash talk that's been going on with Ben Johnson of the Chicago Bears. More on the Packers in just a bit. The Bills survive at 6. Speaking of Chicago, they're 7. And then you got the San Francisco 49ers checking in at number 8. All right, so they dominate. I think at one point, because I was doing Game Day Live on NFL Network, it was 7-7, and then all of a sudden, I think it was a 45-3 count in favor of the Rams. And this was pure domination. I think they lived up to that number one seed that you gave them last week, especially coming off of a loss. This was impressive.
Yeah, my faith in them was rewarded, which is always a good thing. This season, that hasn't always been the case, so I'll take my small victories when I get them. But this was no small victory. This was, like you said, dominant in every phase. Even if the Cardinals had a couple of good series early on, things got off track pretty quickly, and that's because you've got this two-headed rushing attack. You've got Matthew Stafford, who can attack vertically and go after guys like Puka Nacua. How many traffic catches did he make where it just felt like, man, he plucked that in between 2 or 3 defenders, and O-line's holding up. I mean, the offense is in terrific shape right now. I wasn't so worried after the loss at Carolina. That was a desperate team. The Rams had 3 uncharacteristic turnovers. That has not been them for most of the season. And so, look, you just look back, 3 close losses this year, several dominant victories. I think you have to consider them, at least right now, the sort of overwhelming favorite as we head into the big game that could decide the NFC West and possibly the number 1 seed as well.
Yeah, like that matchup coming up on the TNF in 2 weeks, or I guess another week and change at this point. The point is, though, they sit at number 1. The Seahawks, that squad, they are at number 2. And yet I look at this team, what they were able to accomplish. Rashid Shaheed was absolutely electric. That was the impact I think that they were hoping to go and see here. Look, they dominated against Atlanta. I don't want to look too far ahead because they do match up against the Colts team, but let's be honest here. We might see a 44-year-old in Phillip Rivers out on the football field signing to the practice squad for Indianapolis. More on that coming up in just a bit here. But how significant is that TNF game? Not just from the playoff perspective, but just to show that, hey, we are the team to beat in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, look, this Seahawks team rang up a ton of yards against the Rams, and after that early flourish by LA, they were kind of the better team. It came down to Sam Darnold turnovers and such. And look, this game in Atlanta Sunday was 6-6 at the half. It wasn't looking great. And then all of a sudden, you mentioned Shaheed. He had the long kickoff return, 100 yards. That's the kind of impact they were hoping for. The home run aspect also contributed some big receptions as well. Huge credit to Seattle's defense, too. I know Sam Darnold can make throws like this and get his pass catchers involved there, Shaheed, with the yards after the catch. But how about Nick Emanwari, the rookie, with a sack, a blocked field goal, and also an interception? A terrific game for, I would say one of your defensive rookie of the year favorites. So they get Cooper Kupp in the end zone first time in a long time and made life tough for guys like Kirk Cousins and Bijan Robinson. And yeah, as we look forward to that game against the Rams, they're playing good football and they can match them. There's one of the few teams that has the kind of firepower in all 3 phases of the game that I think can stack up with the Rams and give them a battle.
Yeah, I don't know if Seattle has the best defense in the NFL. It's certainly on the short list, but they have my favorite defense to watch because the physicality, the turnovers that they create, it almost feels like you want to watch them as opposed to, a lot of times you're, as an NFL fan, you're sitting there just kind of worried about the offense. No, Seattle has made it very entertaining. All right, let's shift our attention here Time for Team of the Week. It is presented by Truist. The number 5 team, the Green Bay Packers, they handle business against the Chicago Bears at home. Is there a weakness for this football team?
Yeah, I think offensively, they had their struggles. So we've seen them have some games where they really struggle to put things together. But now that Christian Watson is back and healthy and Jordan Love is playing a better brand of football, especially the last 2 games, those issues have been quelled a little bit. I mean, Watson was terrific, 2 touchdown catches. Bo Melton, who's obviously kind of reemerged a little bit, had 1 grab, but it was an important one, beating zone for a deep touchdown as well. And so those big explosive plays are huge. You also saw very timely plays from the Green Bay defense, including this one, plus the 3rd down stop just prior to the interception in the end zone. They were holding on for dear life at that point, a little gassed, but credit to Green Bay for making the play. I mean, Jeff Hafley's done a really good job with this unit all season long. They're one of the better defenses in the league. The kicking game seems solid for once. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know that they're a perfect team by any stretch, and they were a couple of plays from letting this one slip away, but they took care of business. They responded. They're in a positive direction right now. And so, yeah, Green Bay, I think, has to be considered the favorite at this moment, even if it's a razor-thin margin with one more game left against Chicago in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that Chicago Bears team in just a moment here, because I do look at the way that they won that game, Green Bay, and kind of fortunate here. They were dominant in that first half, especially on the defensive side, and Chicago was able to kind of wear them down, but it was positive to see Jordan Love find Watson. There were some fun moments in terms of some of those explosive plays. To number 6 we go. We got a Buffalo Bills team. Here's the good news. They won the game. Here's where I would push back. Josh Allen, again, rocking the Superman cape. They overcame some issues on the offensive side, and they beat a team that had 4 wins on the season. What do I make of this victory?
A 4-win team with Joe Burrow, let's be honest here, right? Joe's completely changed the complexion of that team, but your point is fair, right? This was a Cincinnati defense we were chewing up all season long, and they had 18 points through the first 52 minutes of the game, so it did take that late flourish. It did take a couple of, I guess you'd say, unlikely interceptions from Joe Burrow, and 2 of the shorter interceptions you'll ever see either. But yeah, you're right about Allen. He's got that ability to kind of flip a switch and go over the top if he needs to. And whether it's running with the ball, making crazy throws, doing whatever he has to do. And kind of back to the point you were making at the top of the show, Mike, and with the different looking playoff field than we've seen in recent years. What has been his kryptonite in years past? It was Burrow once. It was Mahomes multiple times. We're not going to see either one of those guys. We may not see we may not see Lamar Jackson, rather. So, look, not a perfect Bills team. They had to rely on plays like this to win the game. But if you look at the playoff field, I don't know that there's a team they can't beat. Maybe this is one of those weird years. Peyton Manning won his first Super Bowl without probably his best Colts team by any stretch of the imagination. So, you never know, and you always give Josh a chance when he's got the ball and the game on the line.
I don't want to be that dude. If I said Drake May, is he going to be the new kryptonite for Josh Allen? It might be the case. We will find out, obviously. We saw Drake May kind of ball out in a primetime game earlier this season against the Bills. I thought that was his coming out party, and look, we get this matchup once again, and it's a really important one for both of these teams, meaningful in terms of that playoff positioning. Shift our attention to the number 7 team. That is the Chicago Bears. All right, I made reference to this here. I thought the second half looked good for this team, and they did the things that they wanted to do. I thought they got away from the run a little bit in the first half, and Green Bay's defense was pretty good. Caleb, though, the inconsistencies have been well chronicled, but I think this is a perfect example of it. First half, really struggled. Second half, he looked like college Caleb again.
Yeah, I think he had, 32 pass yards at the half, but really kind of got involved in the game there. And fourth quarter, I mean, look at some of the big completions he made. The drive started to Luther Burden on the final drive, other throws along the way. The touchdown to Zacchaeus was about as low percentage as it gets. And, the Bears defense did okay, but I think they took too many risks, took a little too much man defense. Jordan Love did chew him up, but we want to see Caleb have those kind of vintage drives, and he can make all the big throws and splash plays, but this was an opportunity to kind of cement his legacy a little bit as a young quarterback and rise up in a game that, look, the Bears have been on the wrong side of most Packers games for the last 20 years. So this was a huge opportunity missed, but not a totally demoralizing loss either. Look, this throw is a little farther. maybe they win that game or get the touchdown, go for 2, and possibly win the game. So they're not far off. I didn't want to kill them. I dropped them one spot. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing. The Bears are still in this. They still have that night game at Soldier Field to kind of shift the tide back in their direction.
Margins are thin, though. They were a 1 seed. They dropped to the 7 seed. Are they a playoff team
Very true.
in your mind?
I think they're getting in. I think they are. But you're right. That's a huge drop and an indication of just how tight things are.
I mean, think about this. I mean, look at the remaining schedule. Cleveland, not a gimme game, and despite their record,
Right.
I mean, Myles Garrett could single-handedly handle business in that one, that game against Green Bay. San Francisco also playing for a whole lot right now, and Detroit. My point is, this is going to be a fun rest of the season. Next couple weeks for a lot of teams that are battling to be into the NFL playoffs. Not exactly sure if Chicago is going to be one of those squads, although the talent certainly looks like they are more than capable of getting it done. Mentioned and name-checked the Lions. Where do they sit in the rankings? Philadelphia in overtime on a Monday night game, not able to survive and advance. I think we're hitting the panic button for their offense, as well as Detroit. We'll examine both of those teams coming up next.
Power Rankings is brought to you by Energizer. Still going.
Well, back here on Power Rankings, it is teams 9 through 16. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars on the move, up 3 spots to number 9. If I'm not mistaken, that might be their highest ranking of the season. The Lions also moving up 1 spot. They're 10. The Texans in that defense sitting at 11. They are a dangerous squad. Chargers getting it done. Justin Herbert can still play with one hand. They are the 12th team. The Eagles, they dropped 3 spots. They're at 13. The Steelers moving up 6 spots. We will talk about them in just a moment at 14. The Colts at 15. And the Baltimore Ravens falling 2 spots to the 16th position. Time for Future Champions presented by FanDuel. Take a closer look at the odds to win the AFC South. The Jags all of a sudden now the favorite, minus 190. The Texans plus 170. The Colts were a 7-1 football team, plus 3,000 right now. We'll talk about them, their quarterback situation in just a moment. But this Jacksonville team, they've now won 4 straight games. I think they are one of the dangerous teams in the NFL. I think they're going to be postseason bound. What say you, Eric?
They have nothing to lose, right? After last season and in recent history, right? Hasn't been a lot of success there. And so Liam Cohen comes in and, whips this offense into shape. We've seen Trevor Lawrence the past couple games. He's cut out the interceptions. He's made big plays. Brian Thomas, Jacoby Myers, other guys. I mean, it's been impressive. I don't know what their superpower is outside of maybe their run defense. They're maybe not exceptional at very many things, but they don't have those glaring weaknesses either. And so they've been very competitive, very interesting team that can run the football as well. Offensive line has not been exposed, so good for them. I mean, I still don't know how seriously we should take them, but you win 4 straight. I mean, that's going to catch your attention around the league.
Yeah, and the reality is that in all 4 of those wins, they're scoring at least 25 points in those games. And really, since their bye, they're 3rd in the NFL in points per game. So offensively, we had some questions earlier about Trevor Lawrence and this team, but they are seemingly coming together in the right time. The Lions on TNF last week absolutely needed that game against the Cowboys. I thought Dallas was playing better football. I felt like Dallas was going to win that game and pull it off on the road. They didn't. How much respect should we be giving Detroit right now during this home stretch?
It's tough, right? Because with a big step forward with that win, keeping their season alive. First of all, you have a lot of work left to do. But second of all, losing Brian Branch, I think, is going to really hurt this defense. When you have Jahmyr Gibbs, you have a chance. When he's excelled, they've won 9-0 when he's had a big game and scored a touchdown. 0-5 when he hasn't, though. So that's the big thing. If you don't get him his touches, his yards, his opportunities, the offense tends to go a little stale. And again, just sort of back to the defense, they got some pressure early on, should have had this safety here. Obviously, it was a great play. We saw them just get more aggressive on that side of the ball, but still had to kind of hang on late a little. And, with the secondary being as thin as it is, I have my questions. Can they find more replacements? They've had to do it 2 years in a row where they're scraping the practice squad and the bottom of the roster to try to find anybody who can contribute. And now you lose one of the heart and soul players of that defense. That worries me.
Yeah, they have a huge matchup against the Rams right across the street at SoFi Stadium. You win that game, and I think the calculus changes, not just from a playoff positioning, but from a respect standing as well, especially without Branch in that lineup. Look, we grew up, we're all sports fans. We all have our NFL teams. A little bit easier for me because my team is on the outside looking in, has already been eliminated, and I'm already thinking about the draft. But I think that gives me unique perspective here. I want to see the best teams in the postseason. I think the Houston Texans right now are flexing, and I think they are arguably the team that no one wants to play in the NFL because of their defense. You're with me, right? Like, this team is going to figure out a way to get in.
They're just devastating defensively. I mean, we saw what they did to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, even if the Chiefs had their share of self-inflicted mistakes and, the fourth downs. But, I argued that Andy Reid's aggressiveness was sort of a healthy measure of respect for just how good these guys are. Like, you have to take any opportunities you have, and you see pass breakups here. You see pressure in the pass game. Obviously, great penetration in the run game too. They've got their things figured out back there. The assignments are very well carried out. D'Amico Ryans seems like he's a very good coach. I mean, look, CJ Stroud completed 3 passes in the second half. Got to do better than that, right?
Yeah.
They lose Nick Chubb. That worries me a little bit too. But offensively, they are going to have their limitations. But if they can get Woody Marks going like he's been, Nico Collins made big plays in this game. The rookie Higgins made big catches as well. They had just enough offensively. They held together on special teams and delivered a huge victory. I'm with you. I would love to see them go against a high-powered offense. Obviously Buffalo, you think about Josh Allen, somebody like that. But New England, other teams would be a terrific matchup, and they're going to be scaring the daylight to whoever they face.
If I told you 2 years ago that this team would be, making a push for the postseason, that wouldn't have surprised you. If I told you that we had some questions about their offense with C.J. Stroud, that's the thing that would have raised an eyebrow. But once again, playing some good football, and they continue to get some wins. At 13, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Watch them on Monday Night Football. They dropped 3 spots right now. Jalen Hurts throws 4 interceptions. To be fair to him, some of those not his fault, but I think at this point, after 3 straight losses, Eric, I'm stomping on the panic button for this team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm using my feet, my hands, anything I can to smash that thing, because the offense, I don't want to say it's broken, but it certainly doesn't look right. And, there were moments here and there. A.J. Brown certainly made some big catches. Devontae Smith made a grab late. Saquon Barkley carried the offense seemingly for the first 3.5 quarters of the game. But yeah, I mean, there's really a limitation of what they can do. And I think Lane Johnson being out, that just takes a big chunk out of the offensive line. Defensively, they played well, but, a couple of plays down the stretch, a penalty against Quinyon Mitchell, had trouble stopping Justin Herbert as a runner. So I know it boils down to those turnovers, though, and the offensive limitations. That is what is holding back this team last year. I'm almost wondering if the 2024 Eagles were the exception to the rule, because, we've seen them have sluggish times before that offensively, and, it just isn't happening in the passing game right now.
Yeah, Eagles fans don't want to hear this starting to look a little like 2023, 10-1 start, and then all of a sudden limping into the postseason. That wasn't pretty. Here's the positive, though. Raiders on deck, a Commanders team following. You got the Bills on the road, and then the Commanders again. There's a stretch run here where they can find some confidence, especially this week against a Raiders team that can't seemingly get out of their own way. Biggest mover of the week. Time for Power Moves, presented by Energizer. Moving up 6 spots, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who all of a sudden, man, I see Mike Tomlin, people chanting his name to fire him in Pittsburgh, which is, to me, sacrilegious. He gets a win against the Ravens. He's giving a kiss to the cameras. He's walking off to the field. All is right for the Steelers, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? And how do we measure head coaches, right? Super Bowl championships, win-loss percentage, all that stuff matters, but when you can have the kind of week that the Steelers did last week, with all the noise going on about Tomlin's future, about Rodgers' future, about this team possibly missing the playoffs, all the ugliness, and then turn around and go into Baltimore, which I guess on the whole had been playing better even after their loss the week before, and to beat them and take control of the game early and hold on, I mean, that was pretty impressive. That's why I think Mike Tomlin deserves respect as one of the great head coaches. And they got Aaron Rodgers going. They got DK Metcalf going. There wasn't much of a run game, and they did slow down in the fourth quarter. But defensively, they made the plays they had to. The red zone stop and then the sack to end the game. I mean, that's a complete formula, and that's how Pittsburgh's got to win games at this point.
Yeah, this could be a tough matchup against, and wait till I say it, the Miami Dolphins, who once again just have been figuring out ways to get some wins. Mike McDaniel, I will give him a ton of credit from what we're seeing from that team's offense. They have not quit on him. So the Steelers were the biggest riser of the week. The team that dropped the most, the Indianapolis Colts. They were 7-1 to start the year.
Crazy.
The news, Ian Rappaport, I thought this was a parody account when I first saw the news come through my timeline that they were looking to sign Phillip Rivers. Looks like they have. He's going to be on the practice squad. He's 45 years old. 44, every year counts, especially at this age, I know. And he hasn't played, though, in 5 years. Like, what are we doing right now? Riley Leonard's got the PCL sprain, a grade 1. We know Daniel Jones is done for the year. Are you ready to stick a fork in the squad?
I was dusting off my 2021 tape this morning before we taped. And look, Rivers played well that year, obviously, but it's been a long time since we've seen him, and we have no clue what kind of shape he's in. Riley Leonard, I thought, played as well as you could have hoped for a guy thrown into that situation. Only a handful of NFL snaps before that. But, you know, even if Sauce Gardner comes back, even if Buckner comes back, I just don't know how this team is going to have enough on the entire roster to hold this thing through. And you're right, could be the second team ever to start 7-1, since 1990 and miss the postseason. Just sad. Just
for context, you want Phillip Rivers to go out there potentially against arguably the best defense in the NFL on the road in Seattle. I'm telling you, man, this is a recipe for a disaster. By the way, if it goes well, this might be one of the great all-time sports stories that we have seen. Not just NFL stories.
No doubt.
I mean, this dude to get out there and perform against that defense, I don't know. I have some serious doubts, and I think anyone who's watching or listening to the show would agree with that assessment. That is not breaking news. Kansas City fans, I feel like every single week I'm saying, hey, is this the week? Are they done? Are they done? Is Eric willing to say they're done? The answer to that coming up next on Power Rankings. Up back here on Power Rankings, it's teams 17 through 24, according to Eric Edholm. And right now, the Bucs scratching and clawing, trying to figure out a way to hold on to that division lead. It's them at 17, coming off a loss against the Saints. The Panthers idle at 18. The Dallas Cowboys, we'll talk about them in just a moment, at 19. The Chiefs, they drop a spot to 20. We got the Dolphins, who we'll talk about. The Minnesota Vikings moving up 3 spots, found their offense. The Bengals at 23 and the Atlanta Falcons at 24. All right, the Dallas Cowboys, this is a team that, once again, I mentioned it before, I thought they were going to get a win on the road against Detroit. That doesn't happen. Now it's a huge game against the Vikings. Give me some context on just how important this game is for them and what you expect to see.
I think it's a loss, and they're officially done. Right now, their chances are pretty remote, and obviously, like you said, they couldn't pass protect for Dak. Yep. Defense really had their hands full against Detroit, so it was a bad all-around night, especially after CeeDee Lamb got hurt. He'd been having some success early. So what's Lamb's status? What's George Pickens' status? He didn't come up very big in that game. They can beat J.J. McCarthy, though he had a good game Sunday, but backs are against the wall, and even more so if they lose this one.
The Chiefs have now lost 4 out of their last 5 games. I ask you every week, are they done? Are they done? Are they done?
I think had the Chargers lost Sunday night, or Monday night rather, there was a chance that the door crept open a little bit more, but the mistakes they made against the Texans, the 4th down failures, the interceptions, everything else. You can look back to the Jacksonville games earlier in the season that they should have won or could have won, or were used to them winning, things like that. Mahomes, I didn't think he played a horrible game, but he's gotten in some bad habits, and obviously didn't come up when he needed to. But again, those 2 drops were really the killers in that one, and the defense has been pretty good. But I'd take this team metrics-wise over last year. If you stacked them in a blind resume, you'd say this year's team was better, but the record says a different story.
Yeah, it's wild to me. By the way, just some perspective on that Chargers when they needed it. They match up against Kansas City in KC coming up this week. They went from, had they lost to Philadelphia, they'd be on the outside looking into the playoff picture. They're in the mix right now. The team, the same exact record as the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't look now. The Miami Dolphins continue to pick up wins because of this team's offense. They've won 5 out of the last 6. I got to be honest, in the entire list of the rankings, Eric, this is the one where I push back a little bit. I think they should be better than 21.
Yeah, I thought about it, right? Obviously, beating the likes of the Jets and Saints and Commanders at this stage only holds so much respect. They did beat the Bills, though, and beat them pretty convincingly, and they've held teams under 17 points, under 20 points. It's been really impressive. Devin Achane's injury does worry me a little bit, but Mike McDaniel, 2 years in a row, he has sort of saved his job or cooled his seat, however you want to say it, with a late season flourish. So they're going to be a spoiler or dangerous team down the stretch.
Meanwhile, the rest of the rankings at 25, it's the Saints who move up 5 spots with that win against the Bucs. The Commanders at 26, the Cardinals 27, Jets, Browns, Giants, Titans, and Raiders close out our entire set of rankings. Eric, you're the best man. Always good to be with you. We got another set of rankings coming up next week. And of course, enjoy the games in Week 15.